Well, now that my legs stopped shaking a little bit,
They'll get better.
thanks. How long did it take for somebody to do that class without having the shaking effect?
Well, that's a professional class. You know, that's some of the fighters and UFC fighters that we train. That's the kind of levels that I'll push it at. I gave you a little taster of it. I didn't really push it that far, but usually people come in, they're like, oh, I can take that class. Not that you came in that way at all, but I could take that class, and then they die with like 10 seconds. It's a tough class. Maybe 6 months, you get used to it. Well, you never get used to it, but, you know.
Well, Phil is 46 years old. I'm 40. Phil, also a little bit, show us your hand. This, if you see Phil's hand here, this is from punching so hard. And Phil, you showed me that a few minutes ago. I was telling him a story. Somebody told me about a 240-pound guy said that you hit him with a 16-ounce glove on, and he said he was never hit that hard in his life, and he outweighs you by almost 100 pounds. So tell us about your hand and the power that you have.
I think it's something I was born with. You know, I remember when I did that, when I first initially did it, I went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, basically, you punch too hard. Like, you really generate a lot of power, and the bones are just, they're going up. There's nothing we can really do about it. That's just something you was born with, and that's how it is. And I think from there, it kind of came part of me that it surprises people, like probably surprised that gentleman. I don't know who it was. But a lot of people look at me, you know, my reputation is getting pretty big now, and then people are like, oh, he's just a small guy. And then sometimes you get someone who wants to test you out, you know, and it's not a case of beating them up, but you just got to let them feel it in a way that it's harmless, but they get the message. And, you know, when that happens, then they're like, this guy's only tiny, like, wow, where's that just come from? But I think it's just something that I have, you know, I think it's just something I was born with.
Can you, like, look back to when you were fighting over in England, and then where the sport has come today, not just Muay Thai, but MMA?
Yeah, I think it's great that it's come to this. Muay Thai was big. It was very, very big, and I was big in that sport in Europe more than America. And I wish I was 23, 25 again and doing the MMA circuit. I definitely would have a lot of fun now. My wife doesn't want me to fight now in this world, in this art. But the MMA world allows me to still do what I do. You know what I mean? And with people like George and Machard and all these other guys coming up now, I can hang my gloves up and pass it on to those guys, and I'm comfortable with that, because I have 5 belts, so I have no problem with it. You know, I did it. You know, I don't feel like I have anything to catch up to. I enjoyed it.
Now, you know, I look at somebody like George, Rashad, Randy Couture, guys who have a team.
Randy, by the way, is the man. That last fight he had the other day. You know, I look at Randy because I'm 46, he's 46, and my wife says, don't watch Randy because I know he'll make you want to do it again. But no, Randy is the man. I have all the best for Randy. Randy is definitely the man.
Well, what I was going to say is, you know, you got like Sean Tompkins, you got Greg Jackson, you got Faraz, right. You got you. And a lot of times you're all in the same camp with the same fighter together. Do you guys ever have ego clashes where you say, no, I'll teach him that move, you teach him your move? Does it work that way sometimes?
I don't think it does. I think we all know what our speciality is. And we all call Greg the maestro. You know, we all like look at Greg to put it all into one unit. But I know my specialty. Faraz knows his. John Chambers knows his. We all we'll sit down, we'll talk, we'll say what's the strategy on this next fight. We discuss it, and then we know. Greg might say, you know what, Phil, I need you to get some fakes and some feints, and I need something to make George be able to get in. I need him to be able to take his head off. I need him to be able to take him down, whatever the case may be. Now, George will come down here for like a week. We'll work specifically on certain things. I'll call Faraz. I'll say, Faraz, he needs to work on this while he's in Montreal, because obviously he's up there more than what he's down here. Work on this, and this. And then, you know, Faraz sometime will come down with him. He'll figure out what I'm doing and explain it, and then they'll go back to Montreal and they'll work on it. And the same thing with Greg, same thing with Jonathan Chambers, Jonathan Dinar. He does a little bit of jiu-jitsu here with Jonathan Dinar. Same thing, he'll go back to Montreal, and Faraz kind of holds it all together in Montreal, because we're not always there all the time. And like I said, and then sometimes we all go to New Mexico. And I think we do really well because we don't fight with the egos. I think that's why we do so well.
With the explosion in popularity of MMA, what kind of advice can you give people who think that they can fight? Maybe they're younger, maybe they're collegiate champion wrestlers, they want to get into this business. Maybe they're amateur fighters, they want to be pro. How do you make that transition?
Well, I think the number one thing in fighting is your endurance. I think that's one of the keys. You know, you may have the best punch and the best knee and the best elbow, whatever the case may be, and if it doesn't work, and that guy's still there, you know, if you ain't got the endurance to keep it going, you're probably going to lose the fight. So, for me, fitness is a key. That's a definite key. You know, running, swimming, anything that's cardio. You got to get that cardio up. Technique can come later, but the fitness has to be in place. And then you can start working on technique, you know, getting some technique down. And then after that, I would say strategies. And then to be really, really good, you got to start working in here. You know, it's not about how hard I can get this punch. It's like, how do I get this punch to hit and he doesn't see it? How do I get this punch to hit and he's got his guard down? How do I get my kick to hit him and he's not blocked it and he hasn't seen it coming in? Those are the things that I work on more specifically with George. It's like when he was fighting Thiago, everyone's like, oh, he's a Thai boxer, he's a Thai boxer. It's like, yes, I know exactly how a Thai boxer would block a kick. I know exactly how a Thai boxer would parry a punch. But I'm going to make sure that he doesn't even know when the punch is coming. I'm going to make sure that how the fight kind of went, I was going to make sure that Thiago didn't even know when George was going to be there. The strategy on that fight was to be all the way in or all the way out. And that's between us all. We all put that together, that game plan. And my part in it was to make sure George closed that gap when Thiago didn't know it was happening. You know, he may be watching for a jab and then next minute George was on him. And it was too close for Thiago to do anything with his Thai boxing. And then on the outside, George held his own with him on the outside, and then if he wanted to move in, he just moved in. And it was, like I said, all the way in, all the way out, and just close that gap really quick, and he doesn't even see it. He didn't see it, nobody else saw it. They just saw that George was there.
When you talk about conditioning, is that, a lot of people think that cutting weight and going down to a different weight class is all about, I'm going to be a bigger guy at 170 than I can be at 185, and vice versa. I'd be bigger at 155 than I can be at 170, so therefore I'm going to cut weight. But what you just said kind of jogged a little something in me. Is cutting weight part of your conditioning strategy? Like look at BJ Penn at 170. He's not the best fighter, but at 155 he is. Does that because he's got to work that much harder to get down to 155, and in doing so, he's in better shape?
There's a few answers. BJ Penn is a great fighter. He's very fast at 155. 170, he's going to slow down. Like basically our lungs are pretty much the same size for most of us. Some of us can hold more wind than others, but it's pretty much the same size. Now, when BJ Penn is 155, he takes his air in. That air that he takes in has to fuel his body, fuel his muscles, everything. That has to fuel them. Now, when he goes bigger, it's the same amount of air that has to fuel a bigger muscle. He's going to gas out faster, which when George fought him, the game plan was to clinch with him straight away or tire him out. And even he was surprised he was so tired from that clinching, that little thing at the beginning. But if your muscle's this big and you've got the same intake of air going into the muscle, it's going to drain faster. Like you see some guys like this so big and they get tired so fast. It's like, why? Because the muscle is taking the same amount of oxygen out of you. There's some strategies that I use sometimes where I'll do fighting someone, and I'll do it in a way that I wind them. I take the wind out of them. Not hitting them hard, but I take the wind out. And when me taking the wind out, they notice that their body gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and they don't know why. It's because I'm taking the oxygen out. Now, if you got a big muscle, that's what's going to happen.
Now, how do you account for a guy like Brock Lesnar?
Brock Lesnar, well, there's exceptions to it. Brock Lesnar is a big guy. He's got fast twitch fibers, so he's pretty quick off the mark, and he does keep it up going. I think if he meets someone like him is when we're going to see, like, is he going to go further? I think he could, but that's the test.
All right, so if you want to know more about Phil Nurse, thewatt.com. Also, you can come down to the gym.
Oh, I'm going to be doing a demonstration at the expo, the one in New York at the Javits Center. That's when
the Wizard Expo?
Yep, I'm going to be there. I'm just going to be taking my new shirt. And if anyone's interested, they can come down to the Watt and thewatt.com. That's where we're at.
Phil Nurse, thank you very much, sir.